Hey Josh, it's Barry. Hey, I need your intro for the video for tomorrow. Yeah, today's Tuesday. No, it's not Tuesday, Josh. Today's Friday. You want me to do it? I don't do videos. Okay, I'll figure something out. Well, this is gonna be tragic.
Hey everybody.
Hello, friends.
Hi, my name is Josh Dorsheimer. I just haven't been feeling so hot. Oh my goodness, I have so many things that I should be doing right now. I invited an old friend to join me tonight instead of my Golden Girls mug, and that's Yorick. This is my friend, Yorick. He's lovely.
I can put a mask on?
Oh no! Oh no!
What is that? What is it? Oh, it's a snake. It's a snake.
Episode 3, Comedy and Tragedy.
Welcome to Theater of the Seven Sisters spoken word play, Laughing in the Dark, featuring performances from
Rachel, Benny, Griffin, Jeremiah, and Nicole.
I hope you enjoy tonight's episode.
What happened here? Well, I could talk your ear off for the next couple of weeks with stories that would just boggle your entire mind. But let's cut right to it, shall we? The issue here is workplace harassment. Well, it's not as cut and dry as all that. At least not for me. Not too far in the distant past, on the other side of the rainbow, there's this hellhole disguised as a creative space. I walked in blind, as anyone seeking a creative career would do, blissfully unaware of what awaited me in the years to come. I was going through a tough time, as they say, getting out of a toxic relationship and all that jazz. I met some cool cats who I will just call loyalty, courage, and cowardice. We all formed a tight friendship early on, bonded by the fear that loomed over the place, but that's a different story for a different time. Look, the point is, fear can bring a tribe together. And that's what we were. We laughed and carried on about stupid shit that no one else would understand. The smell of glue, the silly costumes that didn't quite fit right. And we'd come up with ridiculous voices just to get a laugh out of each other. Yeah, it's definitely an easier time. After ending my relationship, I started to see the true colors of cowardice. You see, cowardice had the taste for pretty things. People with goals and ambitions and joy. And he lacked self-control. Except, of course, when it came to his, for lack of a better term, wrangler. She had him on a tight leash. And while he enjoyed the security, he drooled over things he couldn't have. And that was me. Lucky me. As metaphorical as I am trying to be, he literally drooled. True story. He was proud to brag about my accomplishments, proud to console me through tough times, proud to spend time with me, and to compliment me on my physique in sometimes the most crude ways. But he was my friend, and I just chalked it up to being that. Maybe I shouldn't have been so naive. Victim blaming is a weird thing. It's a concept that came from... Well, honestly, I have no fucking clue. But whoever started that trend is a piece of shit. After my skies cleared up, Wrangler tightened her leash and lashed out all her fury on me, the victim of her beloved cowardice's cruel selfishness and desire for the unobtainable. Because who could ever blame the person who's responsible for their own actions? Am I right? She would stare at me with disgust for lengths that, quite frankly, were way too long. She lit internet fires, taunting and harassing me. She even tried to put together a small army to smite me down, and my reputation along with it. Side note, I lost a few friends in this whole mess. Brainwashing is a powerful thing. 0 out of 10 would not recommend. You see, the next week, Wrangler attended every show. Called off work just to keep an eye on me and her dude. Clearly, I wasn't up to anything. I wasn't even interested in the guy before, let alone now. But yet she came. She'd talk to my coworkers and try and spin stories that were not true, painting me to be this boyfriend stealer or seductress. I think my favorite nickname was the Devil. What a title to live up to. Honestly, just give me a moment to dust off my horns and pitchfork here real quick. The two of them would monitor my weight, my makeup, the way I walked, and the list goes on and on. They spewed hatred and disgust towards my family and friends. They were allowed to freely roam my workplace after I had left for the day, stealing my makeup and checking the sizes of my costumes, and defacing my character props. She was even allowed backstage during performances, on occasion after downing an entire carafe of wine. Side note, jealous partners have no place in theater. Sometime in the chaos, I decided to confront my old friend Cowardice. He told me he only liked the attention because I was attractive. End of story. And then not too long after that, and we're talking minutes here, he broke down into tears and told me how he really felt. It wasn't just because of my appearance. We'll leave that at that. A few days later, Loyalty asked him why he decided to take a shit on our tribe. He responded, saying that his lady had gotten down on her knees and begged him to stay. And he decided then that he could never leave her side. Have you heard of anything so romantic? Fast forward to the 4th of July. I was just getting ready when I heard some noises outside by the garage. My car had been egged. At the time, I had no idea who or what it was about. I just remember thinking it could have been worse. Later on, as people started understanding her real obsession with me, someone came forward to tell me it was her, that she was saving these eggs for me, and that Cowardice looked up my address in the company database. Happy fucking 4th of July, am I right? Gotta love a good old-fashioned stalker experience. I thought people typically spent the holiday watching fireworks, listening to a patriotic orchestra, or getting tipsy. Oh, or is that just what devilish folk like myself do? So this is where this part of my story wraps up. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, folks. I wish I could tell you that it got better, but it never really did. Paperwork was filed, but nothing ever came of it. Rules were put in place, but no one abided by them. Meetings were held, but I was always to blame for being too friendly and attractive for him to contain himself. A handful of kiddos even said to me, "Hey, who could have blamed her? And who could have blamed him?" Easy questions to answer. Stupid questions to ask. But the truth of it is, victims of workplace harassment deserve better. Promise me this, okay? Don't believe everything you hear. Because behind each jealous person is the innocent human being who unwillingly and sometimes unknowingly planted that seed within them.
Oh, good evening. Welcome to Theater of the Seven Sisters' third episode of spoken word play, Laughing in the Dark. As you can see, I'm sitting here with my pal Yorick, and we're watching a timeless classic whose end both at the first and now was and is to hold as 'twere the mirror up to nature, to show virtue her own feature, scorn her own image, and the very age and body of the time his form and pressure. No, we're not watching Hamlet. We're actually watching Friday the 13th, Part 3. It's one of my favorites. And you know what? I think the mirror does hold up to nature in this film. There's a lot of things in it that I'm scared of, and yet there are also a lot of things that I laugh at. So it's a very good and cathartic movie for me. And I think that's the case for a lot of people. Whether it be film or television or theater, you can immerse yourself in something horrible and enjoy yourself for a little while. Sometimes you use theater or film or television to write or perform about your current circumstances and deal with those feelings, and that is also a very cathartic experience. Sometimes our theatrical spaces are places of both comedy and tragedy, and we realize that both of them sometimes simultaneously exist and grapple onto that comedy to help us. I think all of the pieces this evening encompass why it is that we love both the comedy and the tragedy of theater, and why we keep going back for more. I hope you enjoy these pieces by Griffin Yena, Rachel Faust as performed by Benny Benamani, and Jeremiah Miller, and please enjoy the third episode of Laughing in the Dark. I know Yorick and I will, as soon as we're done with Friday.
Oh! Sorry, I didn't see you there. I was just, curling, you know? Getting my beach pod ready. I'm just kidding. We all know no one's gonna see the beach for the next 3 years, but that's fine. That's not why we're here. We're here for some fun, for some levity. So I brought you to my gray, dark little corner of the world. So I hear the theme of this is laughing in the dark. I have a few poems here written down that when I was performing at Binns Park about 3 summers ago now with the People's Shakespeare Project. I was much poorer than I am now. Not that I have much money to speak for now, but and I would get parking tickets, and I would be in the big old city of Lancaster for the first time with not too much to do. So I wrote a bunch of poetry to help me get through what was a bit of a dark time for me, other than, performing with people that I love and care about. Outside, when we were allowed to do such things, perform for an audience live outside. Hopefully that will happen again. But anyway, so here's some poetry that is a bit sarcastic. I thought it was funny at the time. You can laugh at the poetry. You might laugh at me for thinking any of this was worthy of even writing down or having thought. That's up to you, but this is my bit. I don't really have a place to start, so I'll just jump right here. Right place, right time, wrong ideas. Ooh. I'm surrounded by homeless, and yet somehow I feel at home. All of the homeless sleep outside of the bank. The tellers hurry home, avoiding eye contact. Don't say you love me if you ain't finna smash. What's wrong with you, cuz? If you rob me, you have to take my parking ticket too. I want to sit in the park and write poetry. However, due to where my car sits, in park, it would be towed, taken from me. So now I write poetry in my car, in park. This one's nice. I invited people to come out to see our show on the street, and some very busy-looking businessmen, this was his response to me. My company has me transferred every 3 days or so. I love that line. He said it very sarcastically. He really did not want to see our show. 24-hour allergy relief that only lasts half a day. Excuse the watery eyes, but that's why I'm sniffling. Don't flatter yourself. A day in the city with no cash. A day in the city not meant to last. Too long, too long. I fell asleep in the park by a fountain, longing for time past sleeping on a mountain. Don't long, don't long. $20 for a phone charger from Verizon. More broke days in the city on the horizon. Too soon, too soon. Did a hard day's work for free? It's all right. Karma's looking out for me. She's not. She's not. Let's see what else I have here. Homeless people shouldn't litter. Does that statement make me a fascist? Well, there shouldn't be homeless people, period. If homeless people made a larger effort to improve the community, they may have a better standing in society. Would the homeless even consider working for a society that has cast them out? Perhaps if we work to mend the damaged bonds, they would be more willing. If I'm broke, I'm high. I went by this title. I wrote this down. I thought it was very funny. I went by this title for like the first year and a half I was out acting and doing all my art crap. Professional Bohemian. And then this was performing in a park, drowning in rain. Fiery passion keeps the cold at bay. A life bohemian is oft worth the pay. There is none. You needn't patronize me with faint interest. If your attention be worth more than my time, I would not waste it since you so blatantly detest. I am not worth the verse to you, waste not your rhyme. My foot is asleep. And then I will leave with this encouraging bit here for all of the artists around. If having little money is to suffer, then I do not mind suffering for what I love. My art is my passion is my drive fuels my will keeps me alive. And that seems to be all that I have written down on these pages of sarcastic poetry from a notebook that I lost long ago. But tore these pages from. Yes. Well, thank you for joining me here in this dark little gray corner. I hope yours is a bit brighter. I hope this helped you brighten your corner if it's not. And if not, I'm sorry. And I hope the times get better. And when they do, I will see you in the theater. But until then, stay safe, stay home, and wash your hands. My name is Griffin Yena, by the way. I don't think I said that. Thank you.
When I was 8 years old, my parents got divorced, and my mother moved me to Lancaster City, where I became a latchkey kid. She did a good job raising me, but she didn't really monitor what I watched on television, and I watched a lot of television. And I really fell in love with the talk show. I love talk shows. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be, something on politics. It could be total trash. I love it. It doesn't matter what it is. But it was during these years that I discovered the talk show during my elementary and junior high school years, and I watched it literally lose its mind. It started with shows like Phil Donahue that tried to tackle serious subject matter, and by the end of it we had Maury Povich. Oprah was doing kind of a trashier show then. Montel Williams, Jerry Springer, Jenny Jones, Ricky Lake, and Sally Jesse Raphael. One day I was watching Sally, and her topic was essentially men are pigs. And that was the topic of a lot of these talk shows, really. Even if that wasn't the title, it was at the bottom of the screen, that was the essential message, was that men are pigs. And she had this panel of women on who were just destroying their husband's image, and one of their husbands was called out onto the stage, and this guy walks out, and the audience just booed this guy. Just an eruption of booing. And he walks to the edge of the stage, and his hand moves down to his crotch, and suddenly his crotch became blurry, and he made some subtle movement with his hand, and Sally, speaking into her microphone, got louder and faster. That was the most disgusting thing anybody's ever done on my show. Get the hell off my stage! There was an eruption of cheering then from her crowd of mostly female audience members, and within a minute, she invited this guy back onto the stage. And I remember even as a kid, I'm thinking, of course she did, who's gonna leave that level of entertainment backstage? Occasionally my dad would come and pick me up, and we would go have lunch or dinner at Wang's Chinese restaurant, which used to be on Columbia Avenue. And I remember at the time, the Jenny Jones show was becoming very popular and very controversial. And I remember my dad, who is an artist, but also a very conservative, restrained man. And I remember him saying, I was watching television the other day, and I just happened to turn the channel to the Jenny Jones show. It was the worst trash I have ever seen. And I still giggle at that because there's something so humorous about the conservative, restrained personality coming into contact with total outrageousness. That's what makes me laugh. As I got older, I mostly watched Montel Williams. He was on after school when I got home. And his topic was always the same. He'd start every show by saying something like, there's sugar and spice and everything nice, and they're out on the streets hookering. That was the topic of every show, enough to be creepy. And I think he did have sexual harassment charges leveled against him at one point. Yet every show was about these young girls out on the street, and he would shed these crocodile tears for these girls that he was really just exploiting. And he would end every show by leaning down and showing off his butt to the audience, and he would say, "We're going to get you some help. We're going to get you some help," as he choked back his crocodile tears. Montel would also have, these dorky guys on his show who needed a makeover. They had no clue when it came to dating. Montel was apparently the expert on psychology, sociology, fashion. He had all the answers. And then, of course, there was Springer, Jerry Springer. Springer was becoming popular as I entered high school. I was never an alpha male, though I did play some sports and I was good at it. I just didn't enjoy watching sports. I think that's something that you get more interested in when you have the experience of sitting down with your father and watching sports, which I was raised by my mother. And I think Jerry Springer in some way fulfilled that masculine desire to see violence and to hoot and holler over it. I bonded with other young men at school over Jerry Springer. We would say, "Jerry's the man," and "Jerry Springer Show's the best show ever." Jerry dominated the talk show genre as I graduated from high school and went off to college in New York. By that time, his show had become so outrageous that the ongoing debate was whether or not his guests were real. Jerry would introduce a guest and ask them why they were there, and their reply would be, "I'm here to kick some ass, Jerry." Then Jerry would introduce the person's enemy as if this was still a serious talk show and we were going to get his enemy's side of the story. But before Jerry was even finished introducing the second guest, he'd run up the stairs to the back of the theater to get away from the fighting, because he knew damn well that's what was about to happen. As one of my college roommates remarked, what was so funny about the Jerry Springer Show was how little Jerry Springer had to do with it. He was an ex-mayor and a lawyer whose interests were in American politics. His favorite show was probably the McLaughlin Group. Yet here he was, this figurehead of the trashiest show imaginable. The extent of his involvement with the show was to introduce the guests and then move away to safety and then watch the chaos ensue with absolutely no expression on his face. Best of all, he would get all the credit for the fighting. Every time a fight broke out, the audience would chant, "Jerry, Jerry, Jerry," as if he was up there throwing punches himself. The most charming moment, that you could ever see on the Jerry Springer Show were those moments when he would get amused by what was going on. The humbly restrained coming into contact with trash. I moved to New York City in September of 2000, not only to go to college, but to pursue an acting career. My first job was this off-Broadway play called True Love by Charles L. Mee, who was a very seriously taken writer at the time, I guess still is. And it was a wonderful piece of theater, still one of the best things I've ever been in. It was gritty, cutting edge, had some of the best actors in New York in it, and I was one of the leads. The New York Post described the play as a mad, updated, Jerry Springerized version of Euripides' Hippolytus. Needless to say, I was in heaven. The play was all the outrageousness of a talk show. I mean, it had nudity, violence, cursing, yelling, sex talk, transvestites, you name it. There was a bar in the theater where True Love was performed, and I began drinking every night to calm the excitement of being in such a successful, high-profile, and Springerized piece of theater, and just to celebrate this milestone in my life. But by the end of the run, I realized that I could not get through the day without having 12 drinks. Every night I was going out to the bar. There's a word for that. I had this exciting career that was blossoming, and suddenly it was just crashing and burning. I dropped out of college, and I was now living off my college money, drinking most of it. I had a lot of time on my hands. And it was around this time that I returned to my love of the daytime talk show. I remembered Maury Povich from back in the day, but now he had really jumped onto the trash bandwagon. He rotated between 3 topics: paternity tests, lie detector tests for accused cheaters, and similarly to Montel Williams, little girls who were out on the streets selling themselves. But Maury mostly did paternity. My older brother years and years ago had made the remark that enough was never enough for me. And it was never enough for Maury. I mean, every day for years, he invited women on his show who were desperate to find the father of their babies. Maury would pretend to have compassion for these women, and then he would tease them with the results. When it comes to 9-month-old Johnny, you are not the father. And then the father, the guy who wasn't the father, would do this hip-hop dance while the mother ran backstage screaming and crying as the crowd became ecstatic. I was hungover most days when I woke up. It wasn't in the morning, believe me. And turning on these shows, turning on the television, it just made me feel better. I remember one day Jerry Springer was on, and there was this teaser. It was going into a commercial break, and it was showing you what was going to happen after the commercial break. And this sort of funny-looking, skinny guy got punched right in the face, and he fell backward, and his back hit the stage with a thud. And I don't know what it did. It tickled my funny bone in a way that nothing ever has, and the tears were streaming down my face as I laughed. I fell off the couch and hit the floor with the same kind of thud as I laughed. I was probably in a great deal of despair, but it didn't feel that way. Not in the moment. I got so hooked to these types of shows that one fine morning, I woke up early and walked down to the Hotel Pennsylvania near Macy's where Maury was filmed in the Grand Ballroom. I waited in line with all the other rejects and degenerates who were as excited about all this as I was. I didn't talk to any of them, but there was something nice about knowing I wasn't alone in the world. I mean, these people, we had a real kinship. After we all got seated in Maury's studio, one of his producers came out and warmed up the audience. And of course, we're all excited for these paternity tests, right? So the producer comes out and he says, "All right, everybody, welcome to the Maury Povich Show. Today, we are all going to have compassion. Our guests today have been maimed in horrible accidents that nearly took their lives." I mean, there was just this collective groan in the audience. You know, our hearts sank. I mean, you know, we came there for paternity tests. But still, sitting in Maury's audience was truly an experience. We gave him a 5-minute standing ovation when he came out, you know, for being the wonderful human being that he is. And then he welcomed this woman to the stage who had been stabbed 70 times by her boyfriend. "How did you get away from him?" Maury asked her, incredulous. And she was just in tears from the traumatic memory. She could barely speak. "I kicked him down there." "You kicked him right in his groin?" "Yes." Suddenly, I was on my feet. I saw myself on the screen, clapping like I've never clapped before. The whole audience, I looked around and I saw that they had been raptured to their feet. I mean, kicking a man in the balls, that was a holy, holy theme of the daytime talk show. I knew that. I've been watching a lot of it for a lot of years. After the show, Mari gave us all free pizza. A few years after sitting in Mari's studio audience, I woke up one day and I'd had enough. I hit bottom. I realized I couldn't live without a drink, and I couldn't live if I continued to drink. And it was really quite simple. Once you've had enough, it's pretty simple to turn your back on something. It's been 10 years since my last drink. I don't wake up hungover anymore. Every day, no matter how little sleep I get, I wake up feeling terrific. Well, terrific compared to the way I used to feel. And when I wake up in a good mood, sometimes I'll go to YouTube and find a Jerry Springer clip, and it puts me in an even better mood. Today, I'm a college graduate. I have a good job that I love, and I sing in an Episcopal church choir. And in that church on Sundays, I come into contact with what is sacred. I have the same feeling when I connect with another human being, someone who maybe needs some help and who can benefit from my experience. I think this sacred place is an essential place to go for all of us. But I think it's also essential from time to time to go where nothing is sacred. Keeps things in balance. That lifts my spirits as well. My life has gotten a little fuller in the last 10 years. But on a day when I don't have to do anything or be anywhere, when I've got a cup of coffee, iced coffee, there's just no greater feeling than hopping on YouTube and finding a Jerry Springer clip. There's nothing better than hearing the high-pitched chime of boxing bells and hearing the roar of the crowd as a 70-year-old man who's only there because it's making him richer by the second walks up the studio audience steps and out of harm's way. Kind of like the incense that wafts through the church as I sing the opening hymn with coffee on my breath. It just reminds me that life is good.
Yorick and I decided not to watch the rest of Friday the 13th Part 3 because it got too gory and he got too scared, right, buddy? So we decided to watch the rest of this episode instead. And we're really glad that we did. We enjoyed it. And we hope you did too. I guess this is the end of tonight's episode. So before we go, I would like to thank Barry Fritz, who is the editor of all of these videos, all of these episodes. And he does such a great job. He definitely helps me keep my head on and definitely helps us keep our stuff together. So thank you, Barry. And now I shall leave you in the very capable hands of Nicole Wearbrook with tonight's art medicine. And Yorick and I are definitely going to go on YouTube and binge watch Dr. Phil now. Don't judge.
Hi, this is Nicole, and this week's Art Medicine is coming to you thanks to an excerpt from Lemony Snicket's Letters to Beatrice. I will love you as misfortune loves orphans, as fire loves innocence, and as justice loves to sit and watch while everything goes wrong. I will love you as a battlefield loves young men, and as peppermints love your allergies, and I will love you as the banana peel loves the shoe of a man who was just struck by a shingle falling off a house. I will love you as a volunteer fire department loves rushing into burning buildings, and as burning buildings love to chase them back out, and as a parachute loves to leave a blimp, and as a blimp operator loves to chase after it. I will love you as a dagger loves a certain person's back, and as a certain person loves to wear dagger-proof tunics, and as a dagger-proof tunic loves to go to a certain dry cleaning facility, and how a certain employee of a dry cleaning facility loves to stay up late with a pair of binoculars watching a dagger factory for hours in the hopes of catching a burglar, and as a burglar loves sneaking up behind people with binoculars, suddenly realizing that she has left her dagger at home. I will love you as a drawer loves a secret compartment, and as a secret compartment loves a secret, and as a secret loves to make a person gasp, and as a gasping person loves a glass of brandy to calm their nerves, and as a glass of brandy loves to shatter on the floor, and as the noise of glass shattering loves to make someone else gasp, and as someone else gasping loves a nearby desk to lean against, even if leaning against it presses a lever that loves to open a drawer and reveal a secret compartment. I will love you until all such compartments are discovered and opened, and until all the secrets have gone gasping into the world. I love this excerpt because it reminds me that it's really in comedy and tragedy that we find life and even love. I love you all, and I'll see you soon.
Out here with the books, with the books. Hey everybody, if things weren't exciting enough, even though the world is on pause, your brains are not.